on, Foxy. It's your birthday. Not for real, just for play. This is Cree Summer, and Moana Nui will be right back.
All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for finding us.
Dream team.
Very excited to be here today. My name is Qiana Whitted. I'm a professor of English and African American Studies at the University of South Carolina. I am very, very honored to be here today to talk about the rise of Black women superheroes with three amazing folks who I'm going to ask to start us off by introducing themselves, tell us a little bit about their work and any book contracts they may have recently signed or books that are coming out shortly. And to get us started on our conversation, I'm also going to ask them to share who one of their favorite Black women superheroes, give us the name of one, and a little more about what you like about them and why they're awesome and what you'd like to see them do. So let's start with Ravynn, Dr. Ravynn.
Okay, cool. So hi, I am Ravynn K. Stringfield. I have a PhD in American Studies. I'm a former academic. My work was often on Black women in fantasy, new media narratives, so I did a lot of work on Black women in comic books. So for a while I was kind of working on Ironheart for a large part of my dissertation, and I'll circle back to kind of talking about that in a little bit. I also say former academic, as now I'm kind of transitioning into my fiction writing writ large phase. So my first novel, a young adult romance, is coming out on Tuesday, Love Requires Shock. If anyone wants information for that, if anyone wants information for that, I have like some flyers later that you can come pick up from me if you'd like it. So that's kind of the direction I'm headed in. However, I am going to be I have a small book project coming out with University of Mississippi Press on Ironheart. So I'm still kind of in the academic space. I'm still working on superheroes. Kind of got my hands in a lot of different pockets. So I'm excited to be able to talk with these folks. Very inspirational to me in my work. And as far as my favorite Black woman superhero, I'm actually going to say a girl because I prefer girls. I love when we get Black girl superheroes. I think girls can do anything. But definitely Ironheart, and I think one of the reasons that I love her primarily, she flies. I'm a very big fan of Black girls who can fly. And I think the other thing too is that she kind of has a little bit of an attitude, and we just let her have an attitude. And I think there's something to be said about not trying to change Black girls and who they are. Ironheart has been through a lot, and I just like when she's given space to be. Yeah, so that's what I'll say about Ironheart. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, my name is Alitha.e.Martinez. I'm a comic book artist. I work for Marvel and DC Comics. My first book was Iron Man. My current book is Amanda Waller Absolute Power Origin Story.
Ooh, yes.
So, doing this forever since they let the animals off the ark. So it's so hard. That's all I can say about that kind of stuff because I'm only as good as the current book I'm on. So that's my current book.
That's good. Okay.
Like, which are your favorite, your Black superhero? You know what? They're all my babies because I never know which one I get to draw next. So what was more inspiring to me growing up was the fact that I could come to this country and see things that I've never seen before. Comics was not one of them. We were not allowed. That was not allowed in our house growing up because those people were naked.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, oh, you've got he's naked. Oh, no. That wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. But Star Trek is something that I watched. So Nichelle Nichols, that's the woman who literally stood in front of all of us.
Yeah.
She literally, we saw her drive the starship, and it was so seamless. She got to cross over and love and enjoy and just be beautiful and strong and powerful and sexy and yet not sexualized. You know, more so than they did. It's like, we know what they did. We know what they did. We forgive them for that because it was the 60s. But you showed me a future that I want very, very badly. So she is my lady.
Oh, that's nice.
Awesome, I love that. My name is Grace D. Gipson. I'm a professor of African American Studies, assistant professor of African American Studies at Virginia Commonwealth University. Also got my PhD in African American Studies. I did my dissertation on Black female superheroes in comics and graphic novels. It's kind of been ingrained in me since I was a little girl, when my grandmother gave me the funny papers. And I never thought that I would be sitting here doing this, because comics was a hobby. But like to be able to travel the world, get a little money off of it too, you know, all that great stuff. It was like, wow, I never saw myself here. I'm excited because I just signed with University Press in Mississippi for my book called Reclaiming Her Time, Black Female Futures. So yes, it's like, woo, the weight has been lifted on this tenure track here. You know?
That's right.
So I'm super excited about that, and do a lot of work with Afrofuturism as well. So my favorite characters, it was hard between, I had two, but I was like, Misty Knight. Right now I'm really rocking with her a lot. I loved being able to see her in The Defenders and Luke Cage, and just being able to see that story come to light, because I felt like she wasn't getting a little shine, you know, often. So I want to see more of her. You know, fingers crossed that could happen, because the whole bionic arm, you know, actually one of my chapters in the book is going to be on Misty Knight and looking at Black women and disability. So yeah, I'm excited to just really dive in more into her.
Excellent. So these are experts. We have 3 fabulous experts on our panel today. So I'm looking at my phone here because I've written down the questions that I'm going to ask. My first one is about some of the older as in created further back women superheroes. In particular, if we think about Nubia, Storm, Misty Knight, some of these early titles, everyone here knows we love superheroes, and we know that when they are launched, they are established with their characteristics, their nemesis, their abilities, their background, and in comics, once those things are set, it is hard to change them. In scholarly terms, we talk about superheroes having this illusion of change. So you may think someone's dead, or you may think someone, unless there's a major change, they usually revert back to their characterization. So my longest question, just taking a long setup, is about how you all feel about some of these older Black women superheroes and how they've changed over time, because some of them, as early as 60s, 70s, Milestone in the 90s, they were created during different times, by different people. How do you feel about some of their evolutions? What would you like to see, or what are you not seeing? Should I call names, or?
I want Grace to start.
So one in particular, while they're not like old, but like the Dora Milaje, they come out in the 90s.
That's right.
And so I remember when I first saw the Dora Milaje, they didn't look like what the Dora Milaje look like right now. They look like In Vogue.
That's right. That's right. That was had Christopher Priest run,
exactly,
right?
yes. Okay. So it was 1998 that they, you know, make their first appearance. They have on these short mini skirts, you know, high heel shoes, and kicking butt. Now you're like, that's not the same. Although I actually like this iteration of the Dora Milaje, because I was like, this is not real. Like, we're not fighting in these like short skirts and these high heel shoes and these permed, relaxed hair. Right. So, because for me, I'm always also looking at these features too, like how have we gone from, you know, the hair, sometimes they just don't get it right. Yeah, just don't get it right. But Dora Milaje, for one, definitely stand out. Storm, who is like my all-time favorite, you know, seeing the kind of iterations of her. I have my feelings about the movie, you know, and Halle Berry playing her. I'll leave that for another conversation. But I was excited when, you know, Disney did the reboot, you know, with the X-Men 97.
Yes.
Like, that took me back to Saturday mornings, waking up and watching. So, yeah, those two kind of like really stand out as far as I like what I'm seeing with those particular characters and what they will continue to do.
Can I ask quick follow-up, because you do research on Misty Knight?
Yeah.
Didn't she go through like I could be thinking of the wrong person, but like a kind of blaxploitation
She did.
phase? I'm remembering some
Very painted on, tight, like
suits and everything.
Yeah, she was like modeled off of like a Pam Grier, you know, so that was kind of the idea of what they saw, because she comes out in the 70s. And so she's like right after Storm. So seeing her kind of like transform to what we see in kind of like this 2000 era, we see her in Luke Cage, is definitely another shift that I liked. That were, you know, I liked that she played basketball. And that she was like really good at it, you know, so that she's this detective and has this kind of misty sense, as they call it. So I feel like there was more development that we saw with her in the Luke Cage, even though it wasn't about her. You see a lot more development than what we saw really in the comics.
Nice. Other thoughts on some of these older heroes? I hate calling them older because they're not old, but
more seasoned,
experience, established.
Yes.
Established.
I can riff a little bit, especially since you brought up the Dora Milaje, and I think Shuri falls into that category as well, right? Because with a lot of the older sort of like black women characters that we get, especially with the Christopher Priest run, it's, I think also with the Dora Milaje, which is interesting, is that they were also meant to be like brides or like potential brides for T'Challa. And so I think we also forget that we're not only moving just away from the presence of women, right, but like women that can stand on their own, that can have a purpose in the story outside of their romantic relationship to the male protagonist. And I think also what I will say to the evolution as well, thinking about the girls, thinking about Shuri, one of the things that's been hard for me as I study black girls in comics is how often we have to fight the over-sexualization, not even just for women, but even when we go back to Ironheart, that was one of the first things that happens. Like, Riri is 15 and people were like, why does she look like a grown woman in this image? Like, what do we have to do to get y'all to draw her like a 15-year-old? And so again, I go through this phase of, and I listen to Dr. Eve Ewing a lot, who speaks really poignantly because she's worked on Ironheart as well. But you kind of straddle this line of, you want black girls to be able to do anything, and also we don't have to, the responsibility is a lot as well, right? So we're also sort of thinking about how much we're putting on them in these depictions, in these images, things like that. So I'm excited. I think the thing that I'm really excited about is the sort of the moving superheroes into different types of spaces as well. So I think when you start getting like these black girls in TV shows or in like the little novelizations that come out with like Scholastic and things like that, they tend to be, sometimes they are often more age appropriate, and so I get really excited when I see like Asia Monet is downstairs, if y'all have not seen her work. But she did a graphic novel adaptation based on the Moon Girl show. This art is beautiful, and she's downstairs, so go talk to her. But I love stuff like that, especially the one shots, because it gives you an opportunity to just like track the character in one small package. And again, we're worried about just them being girls, being kids. So, yeah.
So I'd love to hear from the artist's perspective. I mean, you actually worked on Nubia and other titles.
I'm the reason why they look that way.
And
I drew them the first time they looked like hookers. And I was asking why they look like hookers. And it was like, near you minded, finish it, it's a deadline. And then as the Black Panther book suddenly got very, they wanted to do the spin-off World of Wakanda. So I got the art for that, and they're like, well, looks like I'm going back to Wakanda again. So I see the art, and it's like, this is gorgeous. I love this art so much. But why are they dressed like Conan's women with these bras on? It's hot. It's Africa. You're in Africa. You're not wearing that. Believe me, you're not putting that on. So I'm going, okay, explain this to me. Make it make sense. It's like, so they're candidates from all across the different tribes. So why they all look the same? So the first thing he did was sit down, and I did that research, finding the different tribes and what I'm going to add to these set of characters. And we fight. So that means you're going to put clothes on and decent shoes, no more high heels. So the subtle changes they let me make, and then they change it. But it's weird because I listen to things, and the origin of how it happened never comes up. I'm the reason why they look like that. I changed that.
Everybody
Nubia looks like that now.
Yes.
I love that one. That's when they tell me now we're going to do this book Nubia. I'm like, okay, what's that? It's like, well, she's this character from back, and then she's Nubia. Nubia is Wonder Woman's twin sister. I'm like, she had a sister? When did that happen? I heard the whole Clay thing. Oh, I knew she slept with Ares. I knew that's how that happened, especially if they had him captive on the island. There's a line at the door, baby. I'm just saying. It's like, but they tell me this story, how she formed a baby out of clay. Oh, and then suddenly there's some brown clay laying over here. Because it's right here. And let me form up this baby, and like, oh.
Is that really the origin?
Yes, they told me this with a straight face. I'm telling it to you. So they hold it up, and cacao brings up to life, and suddenly a big hawk takes this baby off to Africa. I'm like, oh. Well, bird in the hand. Look, everyone, I got her. So, yeah, they tell me this with a straight face. I'm like, oh no, that's so problematic. So what are we going to do now? Is this the character you're ready? So, yeah, she's come back from time to time, but she doesn't stick. I'm like, do I have to ask why?
Yeah, right.
And then they sent me the picture. Oh, of course she's wearing leopard. Why not the little jungle? Oh, we are not doing any of this stuff. And I want to know where she got the perm from in Africa, because I brought rain to Africa, curling my hair there. Tell you. So they let me redesign her twice, one for Future State, and then there was pushback, because the first thing I did, I thought about Linda Carter and everything I found beautiful about women. And I'm going, oh, I know what to do. The problem is that I've drawn just about every one of these heroes, and I look at them, and you can be smart, and you can be very young, you can be lots of things, but you're not beautiful. You are not desirable. You are not who the main guy wants. You will be overweight. And you will be very smart, smartest woman ever. But you don't have any other agency. You have no choices. We come to you to hear you give a couple answers, and then you can go sit in that corner over there. And I'm like, we're not going to do that anymore. What can I do to this character? I cannot affect the story, but how does she look? What would I want to see? Well, I put the big hair on. My hair's big. She can have big hair too. She's a superhero. That means she has perfect hair, because Amazons are perfect.
That's right.
Right.
Come the hell on. And the pushback was almost immediate from that. They were like, they did not like that. And they didn't like it. Was that, well, why couldn't it at least be straight? It was like, no, that's not from DC. These are from the Comics Gators and those kind of set of folks there.
Okay.
So DC comes again. It's like, well, we're going to hit Nubia as a series now, because they like the feedback they got from the overall of just that debut book. So they're like, even though we were in the back of the bus, I'm telling you, the other one was right in front, but they said do her again, but now she's in our day, so what will she look like? And I'm like, oh, well, this is, first off, I'm thinking of everybody I've ever seen. The first thing women do when they go and they love comics, they learn that you need to have extremely thick skin, because you have to justify why you're in this space, period.
Oh, yes.
Why are you here? Why do you like what you like? And then if you dare put on that costume, how many characters, how many times must you dress up as Storm? I know, I want to dress as other people, so they will boldly dress as someone else. Now you have to justify why you're dressing up as whatever character, fill in the blank. So you're wearing armor just to put on a costume to go outside and get criticized because you love comics. Well, how about I create a character and she's beautiful and she's got on a lovely little costume with the big hair, everything you want on a Wonder Woman character, but she looks like you.
Right.
Absolutely like you. Not like you with the all that perm or whatever else you're doing. This is just you. And they let me do it. And I just got to do this thing, and it was lovely. And I'm sitting at a con, and some women come up crying, because it hurts not to be seen. And it hurts me in a sense that I am literally the only one here. And while women come in, they don't stay, because this is a hard industry. This is how I make all my money. But you're coming here to do this thing. I teach as well. I teach at the School of Visual Arts, a school I could not graduate from because I was the only woman in the cartooning department. You know what that's like? You're in your 20s and you're the only one. You would think just a snack, no, but you have to justify why you're in that space. They're like, they did not want me critiquing their work because you're here slumming it. You're here to get men or something. Like, really, you bunch of nerds? Oh my God. Better than that, Jesus Christ. So, it was a long road, but looking at them and where they're going, and we think, oh, we're getting there quickly. I didn't even know this academic stuff was floating around it, because they never come to ask how. They just assume they know how, or they're telling me they know how. And I'm like, okay. Because they don't tell me how these things were created in the first place, but I know what they transform into, and I know why they transform into these things here. But I am worried that this is not a change that's going to stick, because half of the time, like right now I'm on Amanda, and I hear it's a well-received book, and we know she's the big baddie in the whole, doing some terrible things to people. It's not going to last, you know what's going to happen. But you're not allowing them to have a lasting story. You're snapping it back, so you're going to just walk it all back. Everybody is waiting for the day where we don't have to deal with all this diversity stuff anymore, where it calms down. And it's approaching, because invariably, any friend I have, they do not buy this book. They do not support myself as an artist, or they buy this book. Women in comics groups I'm in, did you buy this book? Did you support the book? Well, they talked about the book, but did you purchase said book? Likely no. It's like, why didn't you purchase the book? Well, don't be surprised if it's not around, because they're not looking at really what you're crying about. They're looking at these numbers. If that book doesn't make that number, that book is dead.
That's it.
So you can't cry and say, oh, the book is here, why don't I have more diversity? There's no women. Did you buy the book? Well, don't complain, because this is about money. Come on. Don't work for the love, please.
So a few times you say they allowed me to, or they let me, etc. And I'm curious about moments where you tried to push back and maybe weren't as...
We don't push back. You do what you're told.
You do it, but you, in terms of you changing the designs
that's
here.
That's subtle. They don't notice, because
is that what it is?
They don't notice those things. That's like, okay, she got it done. At least she didn't like make a major change to it. Like, they allow you to do these little things. If there's a set costume, they tell you design this thing. They're like, it's approved. They let it go. But little things running throughout, they're like, oh, so that little costume they put on there, well, that's just their training clothes. It's not their everyday clothes. So, okay, that's this. And then it starts to bleed. And then even they say, well, there's a certain time in the past. So they go, okay, that's fine. That's good. They're just doing these kind of early missions. But that's that full armor. They're covered. And then when they see it click, they're like, oh, well received. And it goes.
So, and this is why we say the illusion of change, right? Because if it doesn't work for them being various editors and so forth, publishers, or if it doesn't sell, then they can revert. Or I like the way, I appreciate you teaching us about how they might say, oh, this is training clothes, or this is... So shifting into my next question, that was amazing hearing all three of you talk about that. We talked about some of these older superheroes, but of course we have a lot of new ones today. And Ravynn, you mentioned several times about girls in particular. It feels like there's a big distinction between more girl black superheroes today. The way I wrote this question up is that, you know, how we get that criticism that if you don't like something, create your own, right? And I get really annoyed sometimes when I hear that, because these licensed properties are so old. Like you're saying, it's hard sometimes to create your own and then it have the same impact on the marketplace that it might have if it was an established property. But let's talk about some of the newer ones. What are you seeing that you like? What kinds of directions do you think we should be going in? What do we think about some of these newer, younger Black women superheroes or girls? Let's see.
I'm gonna go to you, Ravynn.
I'm gonna start. Okay. Yeah, and I think it's funny because, especially now that we have I feel like more girls saturating, we often kind of forget about Rocket and you know what I mean,
Rocket.
So I feel like that's always a fun one, and especially since I think people are kind of hit or miss on Rocket, especially how she's depicted. She's another one that kind of I think falls victim to the sort of sexualization question, things like that. But anyway, with all the new folks, what I'm liking is I think I'm liking the friendships more. What ends up happening with a lot of the girls or the young ones, I'm not sure what this is, but I feel like I'm seeing a trend of sort of the super genius, the science genius happening a lot with the girls. And so it almost feels like a way to say, okay, well, we don't need to give them a cast of characters to be around because they are the sole genius. We can just put them in a room and then they will make magic happen. And I don't think that's fair because again, I'm concerned about the childhood of it, right? I'm concerned about, okay, who loves her and who does she get to love? Who do these people get to love? And so for me, I really like the teen books. So I really like Champions. I really like when they get a chance to kind of be kids and make mistakes together. And no one's coming to bail them out, right? So I think there's also just something to say about how do you work with superpowers while you're also dealing with sort of the just very casual interpersonal conflicts of being a teenager, which I think tells you a lot about the person as well. So I would love to see more of the teen books. That's the direction that I really like. I feel like we get, especially the really diverse ones, but as you're saying, we'll get a couple of them, we'll read them, if we're not buying, they're gone. So I think that's always hard because I remember I loved Outlaws and then I think we got 3 issues, so I would love to see more sort of Champions Outlawed, that sort of style.
You're reminding me that although I don't read as many of these comics as I should, contemporary ones, I did read, someone sent me Nubia, a real one.
Yes. Oh yeah.
McKinney.
Yes.
It's the YA graphic novel, which I thought was amazing.
Yes.
And it took her and put her in today's environment, and it was written for, I think, middle grade, if not YA. They do that with Miles Morales as well. We see a lot of that too.
Can I say one thing about those?
Yeah.
If you are somebody who, I imagine if you're at a con, you probably are pretty familiar with comic books and you can go to the store and do your own thing. But if you are kind of I just want to explore the space, or I want to pick up a new character that I don't really have a sense of where to start with them, those books are actually fantastic for kind of getting into a character or getting into a story. I love them. I think if you want to meet a new character but you don't want to do all of the kind of digging to figure out which issue you need to start with, they're very sort of self-contained one book issues, and DC and Marvel are both, well, I feel like I have more DC.
Yes.
I have they have a really big variety of those, but they exist in both of those franchises. So if you are somebody who's looking to kind of just pick up a character but don't know where to start, those are often really good. And I feel like the stories are really fun.
Yeah.
They're just they're really small self-contained ones. Yeah,
those are good. So what else about new, and they don't just have to be major publishers, they can also be indie, self-published, crowdfunded. What are you all seeing that you like and don't like?
So still in the big kind of bigger ones, Naomi. So
Naomi, right.
I loved the TV series and was mad when they didn't renew it, and I was like, this is what we need on TV right now. This 16-year-old high school girl who's a superhero, who's also happens to be a big fan of Superman, and and like seeing what her day-to-day in high school, her day-to-day, you know, she's also adopted, so seeing that layer of who she is and that personality, and just getting ready to apply for college. These are things that like kids at 16 and 15 and, you know, in high school do. So here's an opportunity to kind of, you know, provide this fictional outlet to show it, but at the same time see like, oh, I can be like that. Right. I want to get into that. And she talks about wanting to get into like the environment and kind of ecophysics. And I'm like, yes, this is exciting. And, you know, the comic as well is just as exciting. So these are, you know, the teen, the girls, which when I was starting to read comics, there was no girls. You know, it was grown women. And so one thing that I always like to point out is like now, like my play nieces and nephews can like see characters that look like them right now and don't have to wait, you know, later on. Another one, Far Sector.
Yes.
Which that's high on my list.
Yes. I mean, the fact that N.K. Jemisin writes for it, who is like one of the best speculative writers, you know, on this planet, you know, which I'm also really digging that they're getting, you know, some good writers to write these scripts. Eve Ewing is another one who did all of Ironheart. You know, there was a shift to her, and I remember they did, it was on Twitter, or whatever it's now called. You know, there was like, where people were like, we want Eve to write, you know, for Ironheart. And the fact that there were people like putting out these votes, putting out these crowdfunding, like, yes, this is who we want, and it happened. Which then made me think like, oh wow, like if we get together like this, we can make a big company like Marvel to get someone that looks like me to write about, you know, a teenager from Chicago. And it was the fact that they were bringing in real life stuff from Chicago, so it wasn't fiction. So I felt like, I'm from Illinois, so I was like, I've been there. I went down, you know, the road. I've been on Lake Shore. And to see that through this character who also loved Star Trek. And it was just like, yes, that's me. So it's really been exciting seeing Riri. I'm, you know, really hoping and waiting Disney goes ahead and drop that series.
What is the status of that?
They were at D23. And
okay.
Okay.
So it's, you know, Dominique has been posting. So
yes.
I think we're a go for next year. They just haven't said when.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just as psyched about Moon Girl, Deborah Dinosaur. You would have thought I was, you know, Lunella's best friend. Right? I watched that show, and then the soundtrack. You know, so you got Raphael Sadiq, you know, with the music. I'm like, see, this is what I was missing as a kid. So really being able to like channel my inner girl, that inner person, feel like I can belong, feel like I'm being represented, and knowing that there's kind of like this legacy. And like you said, it's like when those books would come out, I'm like grabbing some for me, grabbing some for my nieces, like everybody, because I'm like, I need you to see this, so you can see why I'm excited, so that you can be excited. Because there's always like, well, what can I get for my daughter? And I'm like, here you go. You got this, and this. So it really is truly important to make sure that people buy it, because otherwise, when I write about it in a journal, people are like, oh, I didn't know about that.
Yes, but now it's out of print.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So yeah.
Yes, Alitha, what do you think? Any new or forthcoming titles, superheroes
that you're excited about?
Or not excited?
Right.
It's not a lack of excitement, because it doesn't matter to me what I work on. It just matters that I work.
Right.
That's right.
I'm beyond that whole, you know, oh, it's so wonderful, the stars. It's like you don't sleep. I'm that girl from The Ring at this point. But I worry for the industry, because as much as I see things changing and there's all this diversity and all these new books and all this wonderful stuff, you've got to take a look. Like, I'm behind the scenes. I'm not where people are like seeing all the adulation for you. You're out there watching it, how they're baking this bread. And that's, to me, such a problem that it's going to end up hurting the future instead of helping it if we keep going down this road. Because now I have artists. I'm a teacher at School of Visual Arts. I teach Drawing 1, Drawing 2, and I have people asking me if it's okay to draw people of color. Like, people of color should only draw people of color. And that is literally, so anytime there's something now, before, when I first started drawing, they did not believe they didn't want to draw me. They didn't want me drawing any of the women because I might, make them too real and embrace her or do something to them. I'll unsexy them. They're going to start wearing drawers or something. I don't know. Right. So I did solo male heroes for years until I did Batgirl. Literally, any guy that was like, you know what? At this point, give her Conan because we don't know what else to do. And that's the problem. They don't know what to do with me. They look at me and see this. They don't see what's underneath the fact that you can draw stuff. So everything that I would like to draw, like I never get any say in what I'm going to draw. Never. I hear other artists talk about, and I got to suggest doing this, and I suggest doing that, and then I pitch this. It's like, I am told what to do. I am not asked what I will do. They will tell me, they will figure out where I should go. So now, as it changes and grows and all this diversity, so I drew Batgirl, and now she can draw the women. So now they're asking me, how do you feel about drawing Wolverine? He's so masculine. That's one of the first characters I drew is Wolverine. We keep dancing, me and Wolverine and Black Panther. We keep going round and round and round. But I just got asked that this year. I'm like, really?
Really?
I don't get what's happening, but it's frightening me that now I'm starting to see if there is a woman of color that needs drawing, hire Alitha to draw it. That is not good. That is extremely problematic. That's not just hurting me, that's also making it so now I wanted to do Robotech. That's what I grew up watching when I first got to this country. It was on TV. It helped me start speaking English again. And this is a book I say, if anything I can draw, it's this book. I know these characters. I know this world. Then Gundam. For Gundam out. I'm for all the Gundam. I've already drawn Voltron. And yet, we come up to this here. Voltron was old. And that was like the one book, as I'm drawing this one day, trying to get through the pages, I jump up, I'm drawing Voltron. Oh my God! And you sit down, you keep going, Voltron's gotta get done. Go Lions, here we go. But just to have a question, I don't know if she can draw that kind of stuff. It's a lot of technical stuff, and she's drawing, a lot of slice of life stuff. It's like, you don't absolutely know who I am at all, do you?
Right. Let me show you.
It's like, it's incredible to me just to listen to people talking about you, and you're not anything. You're like a glass. I'm like a glass that's empty, and whatever their content they're drinking today is what you're filled with. But once they drank that, you're back to being empty. So it's not that I can hold status as an artist. It's like these characters that exist. I exist in that same way too. I am always new, or so happy you're getting a break. So happy that you're fighting. It's like I've worked on every major title out there. If there's an award to be given to it, it's given to the team. This award for Black Panther was picked up by my editor. I was not there, nor would I have been invited. You're so far off the radar that you don't exist. They will say, how many books you do? I work on 3 to 5 titles when other people are working on 1. Right now, as Amanda's going on, I finished Miles Morales. I'm starting a different book for a different company. So we're literally just constantly working, but you're getting nowhere because you're an empty glass. And that is my great fear.
That is.
Oof.
Okay.
That's that reality.
That is the reality. And
so you see, I'm terrible. This is why you don't invite me to these things.
This is what's the truth of it, right?
Right.
Like it's and I think the perspective is really important, right? Because I think the three of us, we're academics, so we're just on a different side of it. So
But also, it makes you think about. So we say that, I'm going to use this word diversity, but it means so many different things now. But we say we want representation and diversity, but there's ways in which it gets implemented that don't always serve those who called for it initially, and then it becomes, let's just take it out.
Right.
Let's just take it out. And then also the power to be able to be acknowledged for things that aren't necessarily your experience, but as you say, you did the research. Whether it's African cultures or mythical Amazonians in Wonder Woman's timeline, like there's research, there's ability, and isn't that what we want, is the ability to be given a chance to do those things, even if the characters don't look like you, right? It really, important.
It's funny to me, the things that translate or the things I see them using in movies or little things are the things that I decided to put a little bit more time and effort and research into, not necessarily look. My name is never on these kind of things, but they go, oh, that's an idea. Why don't we use the African tribes? Why don't we do this? I did put the red clay in their hair. There they are on screen. I'm like, that's amazing. Help build this world. This is great. This is like, you've done this thing. So they see it. So that stays. But the problem is that underneath the things that make it problematic, that building, the way you're putting it, all the onus on one type of person to do this one thing, we know that's wrong. And that's what's going to break down and break apart and eventually ends up hurting a lot of artists along the way. They will look at you and go, we just don't have any black titles right now. Whereas before, black books don't sell. So how many, he's like, black, that doesn't mean anything. So I tell my students, the first thing I do, because everyone is so concerned with their pronouns and this and that and the other, it's like they only look at one thing, and if you don't have it, they don't need you, right? So if you're not able to produce, they don't care. So you're done. You're out of here. So the first thing you are is an artist, because there are only certain artists. We know them. Jim Lee, start name, Dan, you can come on, you can do a chorus with me. But then think about how many titles have they worked on in their time. Some of them I've lapped, and I'm still, they will come up to me at a show and say, you're a B-list artist. We don't invite you every year because we have to change them out. We don't, one of these days you're gonna get there. You'll never, remember, that glass is always empty, so no matter what's in there. With Heroes, I didn't even watch Heroes on TV. And they were, have an East Coast, West Coast, back and forth studio. The episode I drew won for overall fan pick. They were horrified because I don't look like an artist, so they asked me not to go to San Diego Comic-Con, and they announced the opposite studio as the winners because they can present as what people believe comic book artists look like, so they got the credit for that one. This is now, and you're here now. This is today. This is now. This is why half of the shows, like, I'm here because I was asked to be here. This was great. But there are other shows I want to get into that they tell me no, that you cannot go. I'm like, why not? Well, because we invited you 2 years ago. I hear people are complaining that New York Comic Con is making the artists pay for tables. I've always paid for my table. I've never not paid for my table. And sometimes they will deny me. So it's hard. They had denied me the year of Black Panther, and then they were horrified because they're like, crap, now how did you get in? Because I come in with the Marvel crew because we have to do interviews for it. So now they track what I'm doing. So it's like, what if I get sick? What if I'm never going to be one of those artists that you invite to a place and they can dwell in this space because they're constantly saying, you don't belong here. So if they're telling that to a live person, you have to wonder why these characters don't stick, because these women have no agency. We're not far enough yet. You're not a person. These characters are not people. You don't have lives, and you only have one type of life. Because again, when you look at me, what's my last name? They can't even imagine. My family's not from here. They think, oh, well, you're black. And they lump you in with this group. So I erase my family. I erase the struggle of my grandmother. And she came here by herself. She brought her children over at 40 years old. Literally walked out of everything she knew to make a better life here. Seamstress to nurse at 40. This is what they're doing. And I'm supposed to throw my grandmother and her struggles over because they decide now you are black. So we need you to have a black story. What does that even mean?
Right. Well, okay, so this is good. Thank you for sharing.
Let's talk about happy things now.
We need to hear. We need to hear all the things behind, like I said, behind the page and on the page. I'm wondering. Before I go to my last question, and I would like to open the floor.
Question.
I'm wondering if. Can we talk about some indie? Can we talk about some crowdfunded, some webtoons?
Yes,
there are places where there are other Black women's stories being told, and they're not Marvel or DC or even Image. Even Dark Horse. Even when's Bitch Planet coming back? There's a lot of like there's a lot of are there other titles or characters or places where you'd like to see more of these superheroes doing things?
It's superheroes, but I'm really excited. Geneva Bowers has got Hover Girls just came out, so I'm really excited about that. But I haven't gotten a copy, but that's something I'm really excited about. And I think it's with. No, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to be on the record being wrong. So like I forgot where it is, but yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
I like Jennifer Crute. It's not like you hear her too much, but she did this one called Jennifer's Journal.
Yes, I have that.
Yeah, and she's an indie artist who I'm like that early slice of life type of comic that she was in many ways. I feel like one of the first, that was doing that.
Well, isn't it interesting? So I asked this question, and we shift away from superheroes because I have plenty of titles that I can recommend. I mean, like there's all the things that Abrams Books is doing now in Megascope, and the adaptation of Octavia Butler's work, and there's so many good things that are coming out in that area. So I don't know if that's saying something about superhero comics and sort of how we fare on there, but yeah, any other?
There's one this graphic novel called The Keeper from Tananarive Due, who I'm a huge. She's a horror writer, and love her work. And so when I saw the graphic novel, I was like, oh, yes, I got to get this. So I try to also move. Sometimes, I mean, I love superheroes, like I'm gonna always, but that's not all that I will collect and get as well. So I think it's important to sometimes comics are not just superheroes.
Right. That's right.
And so we have to spread the wealth to a lot of the other very important stories that are out there.
Mm-hmm. Villains. This is my last question. Villains. Where are our villains? Is Amanda Waller considered
or anti-hero?
I don't consider her.
You don't consider her a villain?
Not a villain.
Anti-hero.
She's a government employee.
I like that.
She does her job.
Okay.
If she's a villain, then Nick Fury's a villain. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Batman's a villain too,
Right,
because
yeah.
they can understand one another.
Okay, so she doesn't. Do we have any?
But quite frankly, she is doing some villainous things right now. They're delicious things. She's just so perfect in her fury. But she's got reasons. She's got reasons.
It's not a reason. She's a super patriot.
That's right. She's a super patriot. She's like that double good, extra good, so good that it's like if I have to bury you, I'm that good for the greater good. That's how good I am good. So I guess that makes her sort of bad.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Anti-hero, yeah.
You have to say anti-hero. Because she will take your life just to say, quote unquote, country.
She will.
For America.
You always have a backup plan.
That's right. I've always respected her. Like the Justice League was my favorite iteration of her because she made so much sense. She's like, you've got this over our heads, and you all have powers. What do you want us to do? We're just supposed to accept that you're here, like Jesus Christ. Oh, look, here come. No, we don't need that. So I think she's saying that, but now they've got her saying so much more. Now you've got people. Once you start jailing people for doing nothing, I'm like, that's not good. Oh, that might be bad.
Okay.
But with her also like that iconic cover where she's like pointing up at Batman. Is Batman? Yeah. And I was like, she's like here and he's up here, and I was like, she ain't taking no stuff from nobody. I loved that about her. It was like, you're not about to walk over me. I'm the wall. So it just everything about her was I love that anti-hero-ness about her. She may have some villain tendencies, but yeah, I think she leans more towards the anti-hero.
Just like great respect for her, just like as a character. Like I mean, she's just a character that so much meat to the story, right? Like so, big ups to Amanda.
For all intents and purposes, she's DC Comics #1 black woman character. I mean, you talk about a class A character. What do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for, Herschel? She's an A-list character, right? You're looking at someone who is in comics, who is
TV.
has a T-shirt, has a lunchbox, has been in cartoons, has been in movies, been in live action.
Got one action figure.
There's not that many DC women that fit that category. She's like
Bumblebee
and maybe Vixen.
Bumblebee's never been in live action. Vixen's not been in.
She's been in live action TV shows.
Not in movies though.
Yeah, she has.
Waller's been in TV shows, movies, cartoons.
Yeah.
She had an action figure that it's hard to find. I can't find it yet. She's the only one that across the board is a A-list black woman character in DC Comics.
Her first appearance should get more love.
Yep, legends.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I love about the older Black Panther run is they had a lot of women villains in there.
Yeah,
You've read Panther's Rage, Malice, and Madam Slave. They were great. Shoot, they were wearing leopard.
But they have to. They're in some part of Africa.
Right.
It's required.
Right.
It's required.
Right. They were very much coming out of the.
Get off a plane. They're gonna pass you this little leopard outfit with the one
leopard
thing
suit.
here. You're like, oh, this is for me.
Yeah. All right. Other villains or other questions for our panel?
What do you think about manga? How it relates to your topic?
Depends on which one. See, someone asked me a question the other day about manga. They asked, what do you prefer? What was it? Star Blazers, right? Or who are they comparing this one to? One of them have to go. You know those posts where they say you can't have both. You have to have only one or the other one. So you either have Robotech or Star Blazers. But one of them have to go. It's like, well, that's easy. I keep Robotech over Star Blazers. You gotta say, no, Star Blazers can die bloody for the camel toes alone. That's what I said. It embarrassed me to see the new costumes. It was, you didn't notice all the women, they have on these wonderful military costumes. So why are the women wearing that? Why? I want to know why. I was embarrassed looking at them. I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. Oh, you're coming back? I'm coming
the
for
mic.
Not this one.
I'm like getting into manga more, so it's one of those where I've been doing anime. Comics was always kind of like right there in my face all the time, and anime, and my students have been getting me into manga. So that's something that I want to do more of and engage more with. So I'm a novice when it comes to that.
I thought it was interesting. You were talking about Black girl heroes and stuff like that, and seeing more people where there are, more young people in the comic space. I was like, is that like the opposite of manga? Because it's like, name a protagonist over the age of 25 in anime and manga.
I also
it's
think
a
of
lot
our
harder, especially with mainstream stuff. I mean, there are obviously, but
we also thinking if what we're being exposed to, are there young people comics? We're only getting the ones that are made for adults right now, and we're getting the seinen and that kind of good. But we're shoujo and shonen. That's boy girls. That means kids. So you're reading children's books and loving them. So technically, you're not reading the ones that salaryman. Like, oh, I love. Did you read? You've got to read it. It's so funny. It had me rolling because, yes, it's about salary people doing things, but they have bizarre adventures, and I think they made a
salary man.
Yeah. Okay.
That was ridiculous. When he's laying in the street with the little shoes up, I'm like, oh, stop it, stop it. They were dying, and then Erased was one of the first ones that came over. They were saying that was for adults, so you're getting a different story, but they said that an American market won't like those books because we like things that blow up and go boom, and we don't like to read. So
I don't know where they keep telling
Gundam and all of those things. Those are kids' stories. I love them. I'm watching all my Gundam over now. Some of them don't hold up, but I'm watching it anyway. Right. Because it's continuity, but we don't have in American comics.
This is
people
true.
Die.
Yeah, agree.
They die and they change their clothes. That was why the first thing I gravitated to is the fact that, hey, even Sailor Moon changes her clothes. And then I'm looking at this going, wait a minute. This is a stone cold killer. She's killed everybody she's come up against. She's blown them all. Ooh, I'm here for this.
Well, heart powers.
Yes, I'm gonna get dressed up to kill you. Yes, look how cute I am. And now you're dead.
Right.
You had a question?
So I guess to follow back with everybody else. Now, I'm a little bit older, so going across the, I guess, generations between manga, American comics, or whatever, as she was saying that, most of it is catered to, young boys or young girls in manga or anime and stuff like that. But I know when I was growing up, they said nobody liked Dragon Ball Z. We didn't know it was an anime or manga. We just knew that it was just awesome. People were blowing stuff up, and But then I noticed, I don't know if y'all noticed over time, this still was not a big lead of black or what they call 10 characters or whatever. They didn't have any of those characters. I noticed as I was growing up, like I have nieces and nephews, even my daughter now, like she gets to see now more characters that may have, darker skin, and they're superheroes or the villains and those and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's even when I even think about everything when it come down in the mixture to Moon Girl, like my daughter, she'll watch that several times. And I love it, but I mean, how do y'all feel about that structure for, I guess, the kids for now than you did back then? Like, I mean, how did your parents feel about you watching that stuff? Because I know my father, when I was watching anime, he'll just stand there and say about they're running, and anything I did with white characters, because I would draw black characters, but if I drew white characters on my own, he was like, why are they not black? So I grew up in a very pro-black home, so he couldn't understand. But I know a lot of times when I would go to school and I would draw my characters, all my characters have shapes and lips that still look like me, but they're still white, and they were like, why are you drawing them that way? I said, because that's great. That's how I feel. And is there a problem? So how would you explain that nowadays? I guess in terms of art style and stuff like that. Maybe that went a little too long, but
no, I mean, so before that question, I'll say this. I remember it wasn't really till I got to college that people knew that I liked comics.
Yeah.
Because as a black girl from the Midwest, that was just you that was not cool. That was, to be called a nerd or a geek was not the end thing.
I think that was everywhere for
yeah. Absolutely. So when people find out now that I love comics, they were like, oh, we didn't know. And I was like, yeah, because I didn't tell a lot of y'all, because it was either being shamed for it, and oftentimes what I did see, I was always like looking for that girl that looked like me. I used to say that when I did see kind of like a black character, I felt like it was just a character that was white that they painted brown. And so now it's definitely a much more authentic or realistic look. And thank you for like making those changes, because beforehand I would wonder like, well, maybe one day, maybe we'll get to see it.
And I showed my older sister, she loves Wonder Woman. When I showed her Nubia, she's like, oh, okay. And I can see there's no connection between us. And so she doesn't understand why I get all hyped about the other stuff or whatever. And then they be trying to throw away my stuff. And I'll be like, you about to get cursed out, don't touch my stuff, and we're gonna fight and stuff like that. And I have an older sister, so she doesn't see the connection and stuff like that. I'm like, you want this black unity thing, but you're still buying Wonder Woman and stuff. And I'm not against Wonder Woman. Yeah. Wonder Woman is cool and stuff like that. But I'm like, look at this over here. Like I'm excited about this too and stuff like that. And you're telling me it's just trash, throw it away. I'm like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, all I can do is introduce for my daughters and stuff like that. Like I said, they right now very into Moon Girl. It's a couple of other things or whatever. I noticed over the years they started introducing like other black characters everywhere, which is great. But how do you keep that consistency going?
You just, for me, like when I write about a character, I'm always going to be writing about either a black girl, black woman, or some black character. Like that's always going to come. So in many ways, that's who I am. That's my lifestyle. Now that's my work. And so it's like I have to just keep putting that out there so that people can become familiar, so that people can be, when they ask the question of like, well, how many black superheroes are there? Like, well, there's actually quite a few. I used to joke, I said, man, if I had $1, for every time somebody asked me that, I was like, I'd be rich right about now.
I would too.
Because people don't, they're like, well, because it's not seen often, they figure, well, they're not there, they don't exist. So a big part of me too is like, while Storm is definitely my favorite, Storm she's always gonna get her shine.
That's the goal.
But I'm like, let me pull out Misty, let me pull out Martha Washington, who maybe if you know Dark Horse and you know her character, Vixen, some more of the characters that like they're there but didn't really get the shine that they could have and should have, and kind of like reintroduce.
And that was a funny thing you said that I really didn't know about Misty until
the Luke Cage
and stuff. Like I knew of her but didn't. I was like, and the actress that paid her was like, yeah, you know, I've seen her many times. She's always playing as this black character,
Right.
as a black character, and I just feel like she portrayed it so well. And then when they canceled the series, I was mad. And so, you know, as usual, I'm like, Netflix, you suck. Disney Plus, definitely you suck, because I'm buying you and I'm hoping you're remaking it, and y'all wasting your time on these films, and y'all just need to make the show over again.
I mean, they broke the internet.
Yeah.
You know, when Luke Cage first came out, like, what show had did that?
Yeah, I was saying Sweet Christmas all day.
We got a question in the back over here.
Not so much a question, but
comment.
One of the things that I represent a brand, Black Comic Lords, and one of the things that we try to do is we try to curate characters in terms of exposing people to different characters. People will be surprised to know that DC has well over 300-400 characters. Characters. Marvel, about 300. But you only hear about the Misties and the Storms, this, that, and the third, because that's what's kind of put out there.
Right.
So our issue in our community has been being able to curate, take the time to curate. That's what we do. We build in a database to show people that the representation that you continue to ask for is already there. You just have to mine it out. And oftentimes what happens is a lot of people we consume things so easily today. Just give it to me. Just don't make me have to go research. Don't make me have to go dig for it, whatever. And I was having a conversation with a professor at Texas Southern, and she was frustrated with some of the students because it was like, okay, how do I get my students to really push to do real research? I was well, they gotta learn how to work. Everything now is Google. Search engine. It's easy to find. But when it comes to things like our characters or whatever, that's not always the case. And so for us to tell our story or to share our story, we gotta have voices that are willing to share, open our mouths and tell the tale.
Yeah.
And be unapologetic as we do it, because oftentimes I love Storm. Shout out to Storm. But Storm is just one
of many.
And there's so many other characters that Sister Martinez could draw or could do and expose people to. And I love all the quote unquote commercial success of characters, whatever, but obscure characters need some love too. Because we're not a monolith. We're all different. We have different backgrounds. We have different stories that we can tell. I'm glad you brought up Martha Washington, which, in my opinion, is one of the diamonds to the character. She has over like 15, 16 books that you can easily go to a comic book shop and dig in dollar bins. No one cares.
Is that Frank Miller?
Yep.
But you can literally go to a comic shop and dig them in 50-cent bins.
Yep.
And so what we try to do is we try to expose people that we come in contact with these characters. The representation, a lot of times we say we don't have it or whatever, but to Sister Martinez's point as well, we've got to buy the books.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we do is we tell people, if you want to support these characters, support these artists, get a pull list.
Right.
Because a pull list lets the comic book shop know that I'm coming in on regular basis to buy these books. That way, they'll see the sales. And our dear sister, you'll get more work just because people like this character, people like this art. Their interest is there. What happens a lot of times, people put out issue 1, it sells 15, 20,000 copies. Put out issue 2, it only sells 7,000. And so a comic book shop and a company like Marvel and DC are looking at it like, well, we're not going to keep this going. So it's on us a lot of times, but some of us don't want to shoulder the responsibility because it's a thankless task. To talk about comic books, to talk about characters, and to people like, huh? What? It's not that serious. Like, no, it is.
It really is.
For some of us. And so I just wanted to share that to let you know that we're out here doing work, but we're one voice. We need many voices. But I do have a question for Sister Martinez.
Oh.
You talked about your behind the scenes stuff. What can we do to ask companies, corporations to include our faces, our presence on editorial?
That is going to require people wanting to work for those companies instead of just for themselves. You're going to have to get in the door and fight that, swim upstream. That's the only way, and very few people want to do that. I mean, you say, going to sit as an editor there, you're going to put up with a lot of stuff and you're going to hit that ceiling, because as I look at it right now, we're still not there. Here, I'll tell some terrible secrets as we close out here. A few years back, since I'm basically a servant, especially when, Marvel Knights was first established, I was a ghost. That means I'm working for no credit, and you're working hard for no credit, not on any of those books. And you're not allowed to say that you worked on those books either, because they want the shine for the bigger artists. They want you to see you've done it all yourself, like an island. And you can understand them. At that point, Marvel was going down. They were at their 7th bankruptcy, and Disney wasn't anywhere around, but DC was going, Spider-Man, yes. Spider-Man practically had a new home. So it was getting really bad for them. So here comes Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, and they have Marvel Knights, and they're going to do this line of obscure characters. But the problem is you've got to work on these characters. You're pulling on people who might not be the quickest, but you have a very hard worker that's going to work silently and do this for you. So I can hear a lot when I'm in these meetings, and one of the things they say, like, you can't have 2 black characters in a book. When people see that, the book won't sell, because the majority of people buying, think about who the majority of people buying these books still are. The ones who have that long pull list, who will buy it, they don't even like the book. They might not even read the book, but they support that book. Batman, I want to work in the Batman office because, wow, they make royalties. That's any book that Batman has Batman on it, like, money, you just dance with that one. But it's like, no, this is what I promote. No, can't stay there. But if we want the others to reach like that, then that means you have to buy a book that you might not like just because it makes a number, puts a tick in a box. The Spawn, how long Spawn stayed on top? Right. But do you understand why Spawn stayed on top?
They bought.
Huh?
They
bought their own book. Then you resell them to people at shows. You're still making your money, but the book makes the numbers. Book's there on top. You're your own company. So guess what you're going to do? You're going to put your own book for an Eisner. And guess what? Even with the nomination, you could put that dart on your book. Your book sells more stuff. Companies like Marvel and DC only have so many slots they can use, so they curate what they're going to use that on. They're like, no, this one only won because editor who happened to be leaving, I don't think he knew the process and just said, yeah, I submitted it, we'll see what happens. I don't think they enjoyed that happened. I asked, why didn't you submit Nubia? Because that was the year for Nightwing. So you've got to understand, it's like not what you think is happening is really happening here, but if you want to make change, then you've got to go out and be the instrument of that, meaning, yeah, I'm going to put books on a list that I'm not going to read, but they're going to count that book as a number, because these are direct market books. That means, so I'm going to put 20,000 of this and 20,000 needs to sell, and I don't need that to come back. If they put 20,000 of that and we don't have them sell, they don't sit around. That's why you can't find Nubia anymore. It's gone. Only these floppies don't reprint. It's direct market. That's all there are. So you want that massive amount. You want that book to hit in big numbers. Here, see the pre-orders? Go pre-order the book. But pre-order the second issue and the third, because that's what they're doing, and that's why they're holding. They've done it for years. We'll never catch up. So you're always going to restart. The book will be here for 5 issues, and it's gone. And it will go every time, because, as you said, the first one sold 100,000. The second one, maybe they'll say, oh, that's great. That's a massive book. But think about it. What does a bad manga sell? A bad one. One that's like, oh, no good. A little over 1 million copies. We can't touch those numbers here. We can't touch them. Why? Because we're not buying the books. We're talking here, but we're not buying the books. They're just not seeing it. So you want that change? People want it. I love independence. I love every independence. But why don't you go to school and try to get a job in Marvel? Why don't you walk in the doors? Because you'll never change them. They don't see it. And here, let me tell you how much they don't see right now. I am currently on a Matt and Waller. finishing the 3rd issue. Just turned in a page this morning. Yes, I worked last night. But I'm looking at the book as the colors come in, and I'm horrified. I'm glad the book exists. I'm so happy she's such a strong character. I'm happy everyone who bought it is well received. But I look at it and I see that they've painted everyone with golden eyes. What? And I'm looking going, all I see are problems. I don't see that you're understanding that just because my skin is dark, my eyes have to be light. I can have wonderful black, coal black eyes and coal black skin and be beautiful and be seen. But you're just like, no, we've got to keep this edge here. No, we're not here yet. Take a closer look and then think about what can I do to push that over. Yes, I love every independent downstairs, but why haven't you gone for a job in Marvel? Why haven't you even tried to intern? Why don't you walk up to them? You want them to hear you? That hashtag works so much because they don't like bad press.
Right, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You want a book? Tell them hashtag DC Nation, hashtag Marvel. Yes.
Hearing you tell that story is like the reason why I didn't try to push to get into the industry. I grew up, drawing, Marvel and DC characters my whole life, making up my own characters. I did 20 years in the Navy, and I saw in the Navy, like, older guys that used to push back if you was their supervisor, and you see they struggle in the military, and they get pushed out. And when I retired, I went to art school, and I was excited. And I was like, yes, this is finally it. I'm gonna, get in. And I had instructors that had your similar story, and they would tell us the same things that you're gonna be the older guy and coming up, and you're gonna have an art director that don't care about what your talent is. He's gonna tell you what you're gonna do. And that's the reason why when I graduated, I said, don't send my portfolio to Disney or nothing. I'm just gonna do freelance. And when I graduated, I went to cosmetology school. But I did get back into comic stuff. So like one day I was working in a barbershop, and I hand sculpted like some of the characters that I made, and like I had a Colin Kaepernick that I turned into Captain America, and had it in the barbershop, and someone came in there and was being nosy and knocked him off the shelf and broke him. And they was like, bro, was that 3D printed? I was like, no, I made that by hand. What's 3D printed? And I my degree is in 3D animation. And I didn't know that those same, things that we made in school are what you could print. So I got into it, and now that's what I do. I 3D print all the characters that you guys, talking about. I just got commissioned to do Rocket and Icon.
Oh, yes.
That's very nice.
I'm back, but I'm not drawing on paper. Just airbrushing on YouTube.
Yes.
My question is for Dr. Gipson. So my baby sister, she has MS, and so when you mentioned your book, it kind of resonated with me, and it made me go. Back in the past, I went out to get New Warriors 2, was the first appearance of Silhouette, who was the first character in comics, black, white, whatever. So I didn't hear if you had a book name yet or if it's coming.
It's called Reclaiming Her Time.
That's all I really
So a riff off of Maxine Waters, yeah.
Okay.
But it probably in about a year from now.
Yeah, so I had to turn it. It's not out yet. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. Or whatever, because I want to make sure I get her a copy and stuff too.
Oh, absolutely. Because I'm definitely I bring up Silhouette when I talk about Misty and so yeah, it's because that's also like a subtopic that hasn't been talked about a lot within comics. You're seeing more of it, but particularly black women, and that you haven't seen too much of that topic being come to the front. So I'm like, let me see if I can introduce some conversation, because I can't do it by myself, but I can at least light the match. And
It's the miracles of.
Oh, the title you said?
Yeah.
Reclaiming Her Time.
Reclaiming Her Time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Maybe when you return to the con next year, you'll be closer to, or if not, displaying your publication.
It would be like pre-order.
Right. What I'm taking away from this conversation, in addition to names of titles and heroes that I need to read more of, is an appreciation for how hard it takes to just get the book to us, right? And how we need to be supporting in all sorts of ways, our presence here as well as our dollars and buying the titles, not just the first, but the second and third. Like that was, it's good to hear that. I think it's good for all of us to hear that. So if you would join me in thanking our panelists today. We appreciate it.
It's like, what's going on?
And
how can we connect and follow them?
Thank you for asking. How can we connect and follow you all?
I have bookmarks that have like my information on the back of them. So if you want to grab one,
please, yes.
So.
And Alitha is downstairs.
Yep, I'm downstairs on the show floor. So we have our little tables and we have our books. We have foreign. I can be reached at www.ariotstorm.com and you'll see it because it's something to do with foreign. And you want to talk about a market that we are not welcomed in?
Yeah.
Oh, it's always a mountain.
All right.
Is next.
And where are you?
My website, blackfuturefeminist.com, and then lovejones20 on Instagram. So those are the main two that will connect everything of what I'm doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves the Republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. We will. So if we put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. We will.